Win as many games as possible. That's the goal. But is it possible to win too many games? Only 7 teams in NFL history have gone 15-1 or better. But how many of these teams ended up winning the Super Bowl? There's even one legendary player who's been on 2 of these teams with the same unfortunate result. This is the Gridiron. We'll start with the most recent team, the 2015 Panthers. First off, the Carolina Panthers made a great decision in 2011 when they drafted Cam Newton with the first pick. He was an immediate star. By 2015, the Panthers were stacking talent. They had Jonathan Stewart as their lead back and Mike Tolbert, both Pro Bowlers. Greg Olsen was their rock at tight end, and they had the speedster Ted Ginn Jr. And that defense, Luke Kuechly, Thomas Davis, Josh Norman, were all first-team All-Pro. Not to mention, Cam Newton was MVP that year. They went 15-1, only scoring below 20 once in the season, and their only loss to the Falcons, scoring just 13. But they averaged 31.25 points per game. The Juggernaut rolled through the playoffs. A 31-24 win over Seattle, a 49-15 win over Arizona. But it all came to a grinding halt when they met the Denver Broncos in the Super Bowl. Mainly that daunting Denver defense led by Von Miller. They terrorized Cam and the Panthers. Carolina could only manage to put up a measly 10 points, their lowest scoring output all year, and they lost to Denver in the big game. The team has also spiraled downward since then. But surely a 15-1 season has worked out for some other team, right? 2008 was the first year Aaron Rodgers started for the Green Bay Packers. They went 6-10, but he quickly started improving. In 2009, they went 11-5. 2010, they went 10-6 and took their late season run through the playoffs, all the way to beat the Steelers in the Super Bowl. This momentum carried on into the 2011 season when the Packers went 15-1. Under head coach Mike McCarthy, the defending Super Bowl champions looked unstoppable. Their running backs Ryan Grant and James Starks both cleared 500 yards. And that's after barely running the ball at all. They had Randall Cobb, Jordy Nelson, Donald Driver, Jermichael Finley, and Pro Bowler Greg Jennings catching the ball. Aaron Rodgers, with his 45 touchdowns and only 6 interceptions, won MVP that season. His 4,643 passing yards is the most he's ever passed for. They were first in the league in scoring, averaging 35 points a game. They scored over 40 in 6 different games that season, like in the last game of the season when they beat the Lions 45-41. Shouldn't we be concerned? Sure, they had the MVP and were first in scoring, but they also let up 41 points to the struggling Lions. And that wasn't an anomaly. They were 19th in scoring defense, but would that come back to haunt them? Their 15-1 record earned them a first-round bye, so in that divisional round, they played the 9-7 Giants and lost. They let up 37 points to the Giants, who won it all that year. So, is having a near-flawless record not all it's cracked up to be? But what if it were a perfect record? Our next stop is the only team to ever go 16-0 in the regular season, the 2007 Patriots. They were literally unstoppable. Tom Brady threw for 4,806 yards and 50 touchdowns. The first time that has ever been done. He was the clear MVP, and the rest of the offense was stacked. A balanced running attack led by Lawrence Maroney, and one of the deadliest receiving squads ever. Wes Welker led the league in receptions. There was the speedy Dante Stallworth, the reliable Jabbar Gaffney, and of course, Randy Moss, who still holds the record for the most receiving touchdowns from that season at 23. The offense was first in scoring, 36.8 points per game. They had the 4th best scoring defense, too, only allowing 17.1 points per game, led by a core of Mike Vrabel, Teddy Bruschi, Vince Wilfork, Asante Samuel, and Rodney Harrison. Who could stop them? No one in the regular season did, and they cruised past the AFC in the playoffs. They beat the Jaguars 31-20 in the divisional round and San Diego 21-12 in the AFC Championship game. But for some reason, the number one team in the league just has trouble getting past Eli Manning and the Giants. Yes, before the Giants beat those 15-1 Packers in the playoffs, they beat the 16-0 Patriots in the 2007 Super Bowl. The New England defense led up their average 17 points, but the offense could only score 14, as they were dominated by the Giants' defensive line. The most impressive season ever had come to a bitter end. Does anyone with the best record win it all? 2004 was an interesting year in Pittsburgh. It was Ben Roethlisberger's rookie year. He didn't even start the first 2 games of the season. Tommy Maddox did. Maddox went 1-1 for the Steelers, the loss coming in Week 2, a 13-30 beatdown courtesy of Baltimore, where he also suffered an injury. Ben Roethlisberger stepped in and went 14-0 as a starter the rest of the season. The Steelers had a 15-1 record going into the playoffs. They had the bus, Jerome Bettis, with 941 yards rushing and 13 touchdowns. They had receivers like Antoine Randall and Pro Bowler Hines Ward. The offense was 11th in terms of scoring. Not bad with a rookie quarterback. But it was the defense that really carried the team. Their number one scoring defense that year was led by Joey Porter, Troy Polamalu, and James Ferrier, to name a few. They had some quality wins, like a 27-3 victory against the Eagles and a Halloween Day 34-20 win against New England. Could a 15-1 team with a rookie quarterback win it all? They beat the Jets in the divisional round 20-17, but ran into Brady and the Pats in the AFC Championship game, getting trounced 41-27 in the rematch. Do we really need to go back before 2000 to find a happy ending? Another team that went 15-1 with a notable rookie on the team was the 1998 Vikings. This rookie wide receiver, Randy Moss, would later be on the legendary 16-0 Patriots. And just like he led the 2007 Patriots in receiving touchdowns, Moss was first-team All-Pro, as was quarterback Randall Cunningham. They also had Pro Bowl wide receiver Chris Carter and Pro Bowl running back Robert Smith. No wonder the Vikings were first in the league in scoring, averaging 34.8 points per game. They had the 6th best scoring defense, too. The defense was led by first-team All-Pro defensive end John Randall and his 10.5 sacks, along with Pro Bowl linebacker Ed McDaniel. Their cornerback Jimmy Hitchcock led the team with 7 interceptions, 3 of which he ran back for touchdowns. Was anyone going to stop them? Yes, the Atlanta Falcons. Granted, the Vikings beat Arizona in the divisional round, but they didn't have enough answers for Atlanta in the NFC Championship game and lost 30-27. Poor Randy Moss. Part of 2 all-time great teams, both with disappointing endings. Atlanta went on to play Denver in the Super Bowl, both 14-2 teams. Maybe the key to winning a Super Bowl is losing at least 2 games in the regular season. I mean, do any of these 15-1 teams win it all? Going back 13 more years, we stay in the Midwest and land in Soldier Field with the 1985 Chicago Bears. You might have heard of them before. One of the best defenses the NFL has ever seen. Names like Leslie Frazier at cornerback, Ron Rivera at linebacker, William the Refrigerator Perry at defensive tackle, Richard Dent and his 17 sacks at defensive end, and Defensive Player of the Year Mike Singletary. To say they had the number one scoring defense in the league is an understatement. They let up an average of 12.4 points per game. This includes a 6-game stretch from Week 7 to Week 12, where they let up a grand total of 29 points, including 2 shutouts. That's an average of 4.8 points per game. What people tend to forget about the 85 Bears is that their offense was not lacking either. Far from it. With first-team All-Pro running back Walter Payton and Pro Bowl quarterback Jim McMahon, that unit was the number 2 scoring offense in the league, averaging 28.5 points per game. They went 15-1 that season, their one loss coming at the hands of Dan Marino and the Miami Dolphins. But we've seen this before. 15-1. It's a curse, right? Not in Chicago. The Bears tore through the playoffs. They beat the Giants 21-0 in the divisional round. They beat the Rams 24-0 in the NFC Championship game. In the Super Bowl, they mauled the Patriots 46-10. New England may as well have scored nothing. Finally, a team can go 15-1 and win it all. But were they the only team to do so? Just the year before, the 1984 San Francisco 49ers had gone 15-1. In fact, they were the first team to ever achieve such a record. Head coach Bill Walsh's team had the best scoring defense in the league and the second best scoring offense, exactly the same as the 1985 Bears. The Niners defense had players like Keena Turner, Dwight Hicks, and Ronnie Lott, who was regarded as one of the best defensive players of all time. This 49ers offense didn't even have Jerry Rice yet. He arrived the following year. But they did have wide receiver Dwight Clark, running back Wendell Tyler, and the man who led the offense with his 28 passing touchdowns that season, Joe Montana. Though Montana had a phenomenal season, he didn't win MVP. Dan Marino did. The Niners cruised through the NFC in the playoffs, beating the Giants 21-10 in the divisional round and embarrassing the Bears 23-0 in the NFC Championship game. And who did they play in the Super Bowl? League MVP Dan Marino and the Miami Dolphins. However, the Niners ended up destroying them 38-16, earning Joe Montana his second Super Bowl win. So back in the 80s, two teams went 15-1 and they both won the Super Bowl. In the 90s and beyond, only 5 teams have gone 15-1 or better. Among those 5, we have 2 teams who lost the Super Bowl and 3 teams who didn't even make it that far. So, is it always better to win almost every game? Maybe it's also important to lose a few to improve upon your weaknesses.